Hi, and welcome to the Purser's Diary Part 2. My name is Martin, and in this series I'm going to talk about a diary, or rather two diaries that were kept by my grandmother's grandparents as they sailed around the world in a ship called the Ida Zeigler in the 1860s. Their names were Charles Alfred Green, or Alfred, and his wife Eliza Green, and this is their story. At the end of Part 1, the Ida Zeigler had just left Plymouth in England, and the next stop was 3 months away on the other side of the globe in Auckland, New Zealand.
July 25th, 1866. Fair light breeze with stunsails set. Several vessels in sight, 139 miles at noon.
Conventionally, the progress of ships is measured in nautical miles from noon till noon the next day. On this day, the Ida Zeigler made 139 nautical miles. It's about an average of 6 knots, or 11 kilometres per hour. Remember, they needed to cover more than 13,000 nautical miles to reach Auckland and New Zealand. So, depending on the wind, progress would either be satisfactory or frustratingly slow. The topic occupies a significant amount of the diary. The stunsails, properly spelled studding sails, were the sails you put up in light winds. It might seem counterintuitive to non-sailors, but sailing a ship does not mean putting up every sail you have in all weather. You might think that more sail means more speed, but there's a fine balance between thrust and control. So in stronger winds, you would reduce sail to restore control and not break something. Incidentally, the Beaufort scale, now used to describe wind speed, originally referred to the sail configurations used by the Royal Navy frigates in different weathers. They couldn't measure wind speed directly, but they could record the sail plan, which was widely understood and fairly standardized.
July 26, 1866. Passed the Thunderbolt, a very large ship, bound out, and several others during the day, and spoke to the Corsair bride, bound home, going to report us. Oh, the happy hearts on board had the misfortune to loose a canary. Winds very light and variable.
Before the days of radios, ships would alter course or hove to by stalling their sails so that they could physically meet and hand over letters, news, information, and small goods. In such a meeting, the ships were said to speak to each other rather than simply passing. On this day, the Corsair bride would report on the Ida when it had returned home, presumably to London. Newspaper accounts, such as the Daily Southern Cross articles, corroborate Alfred's accounts. These reports were not simply a kind of social diary of what ship spoke to another, and when. They comprised a vital communication network when messages and reports were physically relayed from one ship to another until they reached home. There, of course, anxious relatives and investors could learn of the progress of their loved ones and their investments respectively. When Alfred writes that the happy hearts on board had the misfortune to loose a canary, I'm not entirely sure what he means because I've not been able to find that idiom anywhere else. I think he's referring to the rowdiness that occurred on board as a ship approached its home port of London and indulged in the customary draining of the grog store before it got there. Alfred's diary settles into regular daily entries in late July, presumably as the ship's life becomes routine. Alfred remarks on the weather, other ships passed, and Sunday church services. Alfred writes, "Good stiff breeze, fine strong breeze, fine breeze," and then
July 30th, 1866. Dead calm all day with heavy rain falling. We long for a spanking breeze to send us on our road.
But it does not stay that way. The Ida soon finds a breeze.
August 1st, 1866. Have had a splendid breeze all day, doing about 12 knots. This is the breeze to cheer our drooping spirits, though every hour is wafting us further away from those I love and hold so dear. Oh, could I but have a glimpse of their dear loving faces! But it must wait, and hope in good time to have this infinite pleasure. Have overhauled 3 vessels today, and passed them in first-rate style. One was the May Williams, a brigantine.
This is one of several entries where Alfred notes the longitude and latitude, 41 degrees north and 18 degrees west, according to him. His position, however, doesn't seem to be very accurate, possibly because he misheard it from another officer or misreported it. Thankfully, his job was looking after the ship's stores, not navigation. The names of the May Williams and some other ships in the diary are a little problematic. The Lloyd's Register does not have a ship called the May Williams, but there is an Anne Williams. The Daily Southern Cross records that on this day, the Ida spoke to, that is rendezvoused with, the Mary Anne Williams at 35.3 degrees north and 17 degrees west. So the newspaper's probably referring to the more reliable ship's log than Alfred's somewhat inaccurate diary. So, unless the entire Williams family of ships had congregated in the Atlantic for some undisclosed reason, we can probably assume that the May Williams, the Anne Williams, and the Mary Anne Williams were the one and the same ship. From the historiological point of view, these inaccuracies or ambiguities testify to the diary's authenticity. Alfred's entries stand as they were written on the day, and they're not corrected by subsequent fact-checkers in later editions. This is really the raw, unrefined stuff of history. When I transcribed the diary, I had to decide what to do with this misreported information. Do I violate the text by correcting it? It's a bit of a conundrum. My solution was to write up the diary as a transcription and commentary, so Bible students will know where I got this idea from. The transcription preserved the diary entries as faithfully as possible, though I had to introduce some punctuation and correct the spelling of a few words. I tried to keep these edits as unobtrusive as possible to preserve the original entries, and fact checks could then be addressed in the commentary. I eventually printed 10 copies of my transcription and commentary in a hardback book as a family keepsake. My intent was to create something that would probably outlive the original, which by now has almost disintegrated. At 25 degrees north and 29 degrees west, remember these are Alfred's numbers, so treat them with some caution, Alfred writes,
Sunday, August 5th, 1866. A fine steady breeze with all possible canvas set. Prayer read on the poop this morning and sermon. Distance run 165, only our second Sunday at sea. It seems more like 2 months. I long for a quick run home to see my dear ones. Plenty of flying fish to be seen. August 8th, 1866. Winds continue much about the same. Towards evening, it looks inclined to be squally. A passenger reading Shakespeare on deck this evening to amuse his fellow passengers. Anything to change the dull monotony of a sea life. August 9th, 1866. It seems hardly possible that I can really have attained the venerable age of 30 summers. Yet such is a fact, and have enjoyed 4 years of blissful, happy married life. And pray I may enjoy many more. Wind very light, doing but very little. Several vessels in sight, bound out. Did not speak to any of them ahead of Cape de Verde today.
Alfred records the excitement of catching a shark about 7 foot in length. In the following days, as the ship is becalmed, Alfred's entries lengthen, probably because he's got more time in his hands. The crew resorts to pranks to relieve the boredom. Alfred continues his entry for August the 12th, 1866.
Last eve we fell in with another ship just after dark. Fired some blue lights, and the mate, for a lark, rung out, "Now for your letters." And the poor passengers thought he was in earnest. See them hurrying about in all directions and writing up their letters to keep them quick. Said the captain was going to lay till the morning, when he would send a boat to us. But, of course, when the morning comes, we shall have lost sight of him.
On the 13th of August, Alfred writes approvingly about the cook's lecture on temperance. In a later entry, Alfred notes his sobriety in crossing the equator, contrary to the partying enjoyed by most other people on board. I don't think Alfred totally abstained from alcohol. According to one family legend, one of his sons, George, would become such a fierce teetotaler that he would not even let a single drop of alcohol into his home. That's all for this episode. Please like and subscribe. May God be with you in whatever journey you find yourself on, and I hope to see you next time.